Councilor Donnelly, Councilor Beazall, myself, Councilor Di Natale. Also present, Councilor Clark, Mayor Di Natale, and Auditor Saracen. We will start with 26816, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby accepts the gifts from the Friends of Coggeshall Park to repair or replace the meeting room floor at the Henry Coggeshall Memorial Stone House. The estimated fair market value of said gift is $7,830. Commissioner of the Parks, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Councilor. With me tonight is Mary Cregan. She's our secretary. I just want to recognize our board. Our president, Bob O'Connell, could not be here, so he asked me to come. We have a treasurer, Timothy Hurdle, membership, Linda Hurdle, Francine Anderson, Patrick Donlin, and Jean McCarthy as honorary board members. And then we have Richard Anderson, Bert Kaufman, Robert Karen, Nadine Moylan, Ray Golden, Laurie Moylan, and 4 new members that, Mary's one of them, that just started with us last month. Nancy Maynard, Carol Ekstrom, and Joanne Di Natale. And those are our board of directors. Want to do the floor first?
That's what we're talking about
Okay.
right now.
The floor is going to be in the meeting room upstairs. What has happened is it's a concrete floor. It's the original concrete in the building. So anything we put on it, paint or whatever, does not stick. It just comes off and it becomes a problem keeping it clean. So we went out, got a couple estimates, in Black Bear, Colden, and Concrete came back with the best proposal. And it's an epoxy floor. It's going to be 4 days to do it, a day each time, and this is what it's going to look like. It's a rough finish, but it cleans up easy. It's just water you use to clean up, no chemicals to clean it. So when we have the rentals, 2 rentals in a day, it'll be easy for the caretakers to take care of.
Councilor Beazall.
Thank you. Jim, first of all, I can't say enough about the Friends and how they've taken care of that park up there. It's, I actually had an outing at the Stone House 2 or 3 weeks ago from people all over Massachusetts, and they were there and they just could not believe how beautiful that Coggeshall Park is, and you know, a great deal that comes from the Friends of Coggeshall, and can't thank people enough for just taking that park and just making it as beautiful as it is. So thank you very much.
President Kuchmarek.
I'll echo Council Beazall's comments of, you know, it's amazing what the Friends have done for that park. It's, you know, we're fortunate as a city to have, you know, such assets throughout our city, particularly Coggeshall, and to be able to, you know, to have a facility there to hold events and community space is something that most municipalities don't have. So we're incredibly fortunate not only to have those assets, but to have individuals who are so passionately dedicated to preserving it. I guess my question here is just, you know, how is the financial standing of the Friends, and does this substantially complicate the financials for the organization to do this?
Yeah, we are using quite a bit of our finances to do these 2 projects, but we felt it's important to get these 2 done. We're kind of going into a rebuilding year over the next couple of years. That's why we have new members coming in. Most of our board members have been board members for 25 years plus. So they've been there. And so they're tired, and some of them want to get out. So I was glad working with the mayor to get 4 new members to join. We've been trying for years to get more people involved. So the 4 we have, very, very involved. We've had 3 good meetings with them. So I think it's looking good that we can rebuild and build the finances back up to do other projects.
And how are funds typically raised for the organization?
Through the membership, which we have just over 200 members right now. It's down from 10 years ago where we had 400, but mostly through the membership.
I take it members of the public can also give to the organization.
Yes, anybody can join. We have a lot of people actually from out of state that are members.
Wonderful.
They were from the area, they moved out, and they still they still contribute to the park.
Excellent.
So any counselor can join, anybody can join.
How would they do that?
We'll send you the information.
We'll send you the information,
Perfect.
or I'll give it to you before we leave.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for all of your hard work and efforts.
You-
Mayor? Yep.
Thank you. Jim, the Friends are also very, very involved in looking at the trail configuration at the park as well. That's been needing some care for a number of years. And we're bringing in an organization with some grant funding that looks like we'll be able to first do a study of the trails, make them user-friendly, much more so than they are today, also making them available to folks with disabilities. So it's going to be a pretty significant transformation of the trail system at Cogswell, but long overdue. It's just, tidying up the trails, if you will, cleaning them up, making them easier to traverse. So that's exciting stuff, too. It's, we all know, we always refer to it as the gem of a park in Fitchburg, but you know what? It really is. And we really have to focus more on caring for it. And they do a great job at that. The Friends do. Thank you.
Motion to approve 268-16.
Motion made and seconded to approve 268-16. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. 269-16, in order that the city of Fitchburg hereby accepts the grant from the Friends of Cogswell Park to replace the roof at the Cogswell Park gazebo. The estimated fair market value of said gift is $22,200. Mr. McGrath.
What we're gonna do is, we're gonna hire O'Callahan Construction. We went out, we got several bids. And you would say 22,000 for that small roof is kind of expensive. But what we decided to do is, because we go through this every 10, 15 years, when we did the stone house roof after the fire, we went to the synthetic slate. And it's a plastic, it's a composite, which I'll pass it around so you can see it. And it will last for 100 years. So once this is done, we're not gonna be revisiting that roof for a long, long time. And that's gonna be the actual color of the roof when it's done. It's not as deep red as it was, but everybody's okay with it, and I'm okay with it, so I think it would work. So there's no repainting. You're on the lake with the water, that rots the cedar out, the cedar shingles, so we won't have to worry about that.
Counselor Joseph.
What about the structure itself? How, is there gonna have to be any repairs to the structure?
Right now, it doesn't look bad, but we won't know until he gets going into it, when he starts removing the old shingles to see what's underneath,
Okay,
but he
Thank
will
you.
check that.
that's,
Motion to approve 269-16.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 269-16. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
270-16, in order that the city of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Stanton Foundation for the Dog Park Design Grant in the approximate amount of $22,920.90 for the purposes of said grant. Recreation Director LaRose.
Thank you, Marcus. Councilor Di Natale. So the Stanton Foundation grant was an opportunity that came before us due to the efforts of the Friends of Fitchburg Dogs and their president, Sam Squalia, who put together a grant application several months ago that was finally approved. This whole project stemmed from petition 79-14 of the City Council that called for the council to review possible locations for a dog park in the city. The city property and then the City Council approved that petition, forwarded it to the Board of Park Commissioners, who immediately began looking for potential locations. We've received a $22,920.90 grant for just the design of the park, which we intend to use the city's on-call landscape architecture firm to do. The grant also comes with the commitment of 90% of the funding of a proposed $230,000 construction for the future dog park. We intend to come before the City Council, the City Conservation Commission, the Parks Board, and any other relevant commissions, as well as doing several public hearings before we move forward with any final design. This is just funds for design.
Is this 22,000 going to cover the full amount of the
For the
design work?
design, yes.
Okay. And the 90% matching, the 90% commitment,
Yes, Yes, we
Is
have.
that going to be city expenditures, or is that the funds that
They're providing 90% of the funds, which is, I believe, about $218,000.
through fundraising?
The Stanton Foundation is providing that as a grant.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the additional match, which will bring us up to about $230,000, has been committed to be fundraised by the Friends of Fitchburg Dogs.
Okay.
From what I've been told, they're at about approximately 60% to their value of the match at this point, and suspect that they'll meet the final match before the grant is completed.
Okay.
Motion to approve 27016.
I had Counsel Bezal?
Yeah. Thank you. I know that when I was on the Parks Board, we had talked about having a dog park. We have a lot of owners that would just let their dogs run free at Coolidge Park, and there was quite a concern from people down there with dogs running loose, and this will give everybody an opportunity. Being one of the first in the area, my daughter lives in California, and you go out there and there are dog parks all over. I mean, you can't turn a corner without there being a dog park. So I think this is a very good thing. I know when we saw the first designs, I know they had changed it, and the entrance is actually going to be away from the playground now and towards the end of the field. Is that going to stay when you talk about dog park design? They're actually going to keep the entrance where towards the end of the park, right?
That is the goal. The entrance could have adjustments based on the feasibility of the cost of the project versus the benefit of the location, but at this time, we are planning on having the goal be to enter from the end of the area that used to be a runoff location for water overflow.
Okay, and I know at one point, somebody had mentioned to me that there would be funds yearly, I don't know for how long, to actually take care of the dog park. Is that still in place, or?
Yes, the granting agency, the Stanton Foundation, does provide several yearly applications you can do for maintenance to address unexpected difficulties that weren't addressed in the design.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Just before I go, I do want to thank the folks that did all the fundraising too for this. It's been ongoing now for a couple years, and they've had hot dog sales and numerous things, and I do want to thank, all of them for that, so greatly appreciated.
Do we have any anticipation on when this will become a reality?
Our goal is to begin design as soon as you've approved these funds. We have reached out to begin the process of hiring the firm.
I'm talking about the actual park.
Oh, the actual park
being
construction?
completed, and,
The grant does not have a stipulated timeline. That
Okay.
being said, our goal is to try to have completion by the beginning to end of the fall of the next year.
Okay.
So hopefully by fall 2017, we will have a dog park.
and the public hearings will address, at that time, perpetual care of this park.
It will address the plans for perpetual care. It will also address concerns that neighbors or residents may have with rules for the dog park and how maintenance will be addressed.
Okay. Counselor Joseph?
Does that include liability? I mean, I know they're everywhere, the dog parks are in every town. What about, do we require new ordinances to deal with dogs that are off leashes and stuff like that? That, I know we have a leash law now, I'm sure there's going to be a leash area and a non-leash area, I would think, but is that new ordinance or a change to our dog ordinance that's going to be required?
It could require an ordinance. Our city solicitor has already reviewed it and does not feel that it necessarily mandates a change in our ordinance. But he is looking at the issue and giving it further review. We will be issuing new park rules, and if there are a need for changes in the ordinance, we'll be coming before you for those before the construction completes. Additionally, we plan to meet with the animal control officer to try to address her concerns as well.
Okay.
Motion to approve 27016.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to approve 27016. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
27116, in order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services through their COPS hiring program for the 2016 COPS CHP grant in the approximate amount of $250,000 for the purposes of said grant. Chief Martineau.
Good evening, councilors. I'm here to ask for your support on the COPS hiring grant, which was recently awarded to the City of Fitchburg and Fitchburg Police Department. The COPS hiring program, that are known as CHP, is designed to advance public safety through community and policing initiatives, specifically by hiring full-time sworn officers in local communities. The COPS hiring grant was an extremely highly competitive grant application. There was over 4,000 applications submitted this year, and out of the 4,000 applications submitted, only 184 received awards. In fact, there was only 2 awards given in the state of Massachusetts. The City of Fitchburg received an award, and the City of Salem received an award, and I'm proud to say that we actually scored higher than the City of Salem. We were the highest award in the state of Massachusetts. Fitchburg was awarded $250,000 to fund the hiring of 2 police officers. The purpose of this is we're looking to foster a culture of transparency and working to promote and promote trust within the community by engaging in non-enforcement activities, which is an important principle to the Fitchburg Police Department. The department recognizes the importance of working with the community to identify problems and collaboration to develop solutions. Officers will be working primarily in the downtown area and its immediate area to address issues identified through crime and traffic analysis. Officers will be responding to calls for service for crime and quality of life concerns. Some of the officers' duties would include providing outreach to underserved populations, strengthening community partnerships within the local business area. Additionally, officers will be assisting nonprofit and emergency service providers addressing the needs of homelessness and those experiencing mental health or substance abuse crises. If approved, I'm planning on establishing a new unit within the police department called the Community Engagement Unit. These 2 hires will be assigned to the Community Engagement Unit, and their primary duties will be just that, in the downtown area, addressing the needs of in that specific area. Through the use of our crime analysis, we work and we discover hotspots in the city. And over the last few years, because we've been asked to police smarter, we use this statistical data to place officers where we believe crime's going to happen. Historically, the downtown area, the college area, that is our hotspot area, the north of Main Street area. These 2 police officers that we're going to be assigning to this unit, they're not going to be tied to a radio car. They're not going to be responding to the everyday calls. Their primary duty is to be the average face downtown, to have a consistent face downtown. For the last 2 years since I took over as chief, I tried to make a recommitment to downtown by providing foot patrol officers. For the last 2 years, I've been able to do that, but we've been doing it on overtime. And in my opinion, that's not a sustainable program if I have to keep coming back to the city asking for more overtime. I truly believe we're at a pivotal point within the Fitchburg Police Department at this point. We're at 76 sworn police officers. In my short time, and I was just looking at the chart tonight, we've hired 11 police officers. There's been a commitment by the city to fill retirements. There's been a commitment by this mayor's office to add additional police officers. We're at this pivotal point. By adding these 2 police officers, I'm finally getting to a point where I can start providing proactive measures instead of reactive measures to the citizens of Fitchburg. I think it's a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, I come here tonight because this is a match grant. The federal government has awarded us $250,000 to pay for these 2 officers, but with police grants, on hiring grants, there's a match portion of it. I'd be happy to answer questions on the match portion of it tonight. I am prepared to give you some numbers of what that means to the city. But I think, like I said, as I said before, we're at a pivotal spot right now in the city of Fitchburg where, we're finally getting to that position where I can provide some type of proactive measures, some type of proactive policing within the city.
So, Chief, year 1 of this grant is FY18 or is it FY17?
FY17.
So we didn't put anything in the budget for these 2 officers for matching part of the grant. So where is the matching funds going to come from for year 1?
Okay, if I can just explain, year 1 would have start in January of this year. The federal share for year one is anticipated to be $94,434. The local share in year one is anticipated to be $51,111. If we start that in January, it's basically half of that because of the fiscal year. The fiscal year would run out. So I'm anticipating it would be roughly $26,000. We've had conversation with Mr. Saracen, and we believe that we can sustain that in our budget this year and not ask for an appropriation of funds to get us into the next fiscal year. So for this fiscal year, it's our anticipations that we will be able to take care of this. In year two, the federal share in year two is $89,769, and the local share is $61,333. And then it increasingly gets more on the local share. In year three, it's $91,999, while the federal share is $65,796. It's approximately, like I said, the police department is receiving $250,000 from the federal government. The local share in our calculations is going to be $204,444 over a 3-year period. Now, keep in mind, with these grants, we have to maintain our staffing level for the 3 years of the grant and 1 year beyond. So if we accept this and we hire 2 police officers, we have to maintain those 78 police officers for 4 years. Like I said, I think we're at a pivotal point right now. We provided a very aggressive grant to the federal government. You can see the numbers were astonishing, and it was an uphill battle. This is our 6th year in a row for applying for it, so to say the least, we were very ecstatic when we were awarded this grant. We know it's a commitment on the city. We've seen a commitment from this mayor on increasing the numbers in public safety. This is a little bit more of aggressive to bite off all at once because we're asking to hire 2 police officers. But like my wife said to me last night, this is a buy one, get one sale. The federal government's giving us an employee, and we have to pay for an employee. So I think it's a great it's a great opportunity that the city's presented with. I'm hoping the council can support that. And like I said, we truly are a pivotal point here in the history of the Fitchburg Police Department because we're at this opportunity. And I hope it doesn't stop there at 78. I can assume it's going to stop at 78 for the next couple of years because it's a huge commitment from the city. But I think I would love to see when we get beyond that 78 and 4 years from now, if I'm lucky enough to be still sitting here, we can increase those numbers because we're at that point now where I can start doing some proactive measures in the city other than just reacting to crime.
So you're going to do the first year of matching funds through the existing budget this year. Next year and in year 3, we're going to be budgeting that matching component.
You will be seeing in my proposed budget, yes.
And assuming that your levels are going to be the same as it is right now, and the only increase of these 2 positions with the matching portion the city's providing, where I'm going with this question is, when I saw the news about the grant, I knew there was going to be jubilation across a lot of corners because it was a competitive grant and we were lucky enough to get it. My concern about grants that hire full-time positions, as you are already aware of, is these positions are only coming online if not for the grant. Because if we didn't get the grant, they wouldn't be here. Or else we would have budgeted for them already. So I hearken back to the 1990s and the early 2000s when the feds gave us scores of grants to hire officers and only to see those officers laid off later on when the grants ran out and hard times hit the city. I don't want a repeat of that past. So like the fire department a couple of years ago when they received several grants to hire firefighters, question I posed to Chief Roy then and I posed to you as well is a proven analysis that shows future sustainability where we're not going to lose these 2 people once the grant runs out. Now, I understand the matching portion alleviates some of that concern because we're going to be incrementally planning it out over the next 3 or 4 years, so we're not getting an immediate shock value in year 4 at a full amount. But where I'm going with this is I just want some assurances. Are are there gonna be retirements? Are there going to be, because that's how the fire department sold it to us with their grants. Highly expensive older officers retiring, newer guys coming on the force at a far less cost would allow us, that's the principal reason why we can do this now with the help of the grant to sustain them. So basically, when I saw this, my first concern and only concern is sustainability after the grant's over. Because I feel as if we didn't get this grant, we wouldn't be doing this. So how can you assuage the concerns?
Let me start off by sustainability. Let me start going that way forward. For the past 2 years, I've made a dire commitment to have some visibility on Main Street. And I've been coming to for the last 2 years, asking the council and asking the mayor's office for additional overtime funding because I wanted to have a presence downtown, because I thought it was important that we were visible, that we provide that comfort of safety for people going up Main Street. I'm very well aware that I can't sustain that type of program paying overtime rate. That's what really prompted me to aggressively go after this grant. The footwork put into this grant by myself, the captain, the deputy chief, and most importantly, Christie, crime grant writer, was second to none. So I realized we couldn't sustain the services we were providing by asking the taxpayers to keep funding overtime. I'm very well aware of what you're saying, what happened in the 90s, in the early 2000s, only because I lived it. I was a product of the 80s policing era when I came on, and there was 51 police officers in the city of Fitchburg. And we were at dire times at that point in history in the city of Fitchburg. And we were very lucky in the early 90s to start receiving the cops hiring grant under the Clinton administration. And at one point, we hired over 25 police officers. And you are 100% correct, Counselor. We hired a lot of police officers. Numbers at one point rose to 98. And that was not sustainable when the bottom dropped out right after 9/11, and every local community started feeling significant pinches, and we started losing numbers just like every other community. This is 2 police officers. We went through a period where we hired over 25 police officers through COPS grants. The difference between then and now is those police officers that I hired in the 90s, they're all eligible for retirement coming very quickly. Under the state system, a police officer is eligible for retirement after 32 years of service and attaining the age of 55 years old. I recently did an audit of where my police department stands currently, and during this grant period, in the next 4 years, while this grant is active, I have 12 police officers, including myself, but 11 police officers that will reach retirement eligibility age. Doesn't mean they're going to leave, but they will reach the age of 32 years on the job and the minimum age of 55. So there's a potentiality of losing 11 employees, which I'm pretty confident they're all going to retire, because I've polled them, what are your plans? So at the very minimum, we're going to lose 11 active senior, the highest paid patrolmen in the police department over the next 4 years. They're at a different level than new hires. New hires are paid less rate. They're contributing more to the pension system. For the most part, new hires are grabbing individual health care plans, because there's much more to this than just the salary portion. In this grant, we took into account, our retirement contributions, our Medicare expenses, our health insurance, our life insurance, and our retirement benefits. Those are all paid by the federal government for this grant as well. We took all that into consideration. So during the next 4 years, I anticipate, at the very least, we're going to lose at least 11 employees that we have to replace with brand-new 11 young employees, but at a much lower rate. More importantly, what I'd like to stress is those 11 employees currently are receiving something known as the Quinn Bill, or the old version of the Quinn Bill. They're getting some type of education incentive. The majority of them at a certain percentage. New hires are coming in at a different amount, a much lower amount. So there's going to be a savings from that point as well. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the finances of the city are going to be in 4 years from now. None of us do. It'd be great if we could predict what the future is going to bring. I truly believe the city's in an upswing and the future's bright for the city, but I can't predict that as well. What I can predict, though, is I have 11 employees that will reach retirement age, and when they leave, will there be savings not only on their payroll and what they contribute to retirement and everything else, there'll be savings on the educational incentive as well. And I hope in 4 years from now, 3 years when this grant's run out, there's still some appetite in the city to increase upon public safety, because I don't want to stop at 78. I think when I first sat in front of the city council has asked me for my vision in how many police officers I would need. I don't want to stop at 78. There's a lot of services I want to provide the city, important services that they deserve, and it can only do it if we continue to increase. But this is a great step in the right direction. The federal government is giving us $250,000, and I hope the council can support accepting this grant.
President Kuchmarek.
Chief, particularly in the short term, I have no doubts about our ability to afford this based on the documents you've provided, as well as the testimony you've given us today. I guess my concern is certainly the long-term sustainability, and as you've said, it's great to hear that we have it out in 4 or 5 years if we need to, based on retirements. But I'm excited to hear you say, the end goal is to increase the size of our force. It's something that this body has been, talking about and asking for from the executive office for any number of years. Particularly my 3.5 years on this council of talking about what we want, where we're spending more funds of our budget. Of public safety has always been that number one talk. Public safety and infrastructure is what I've always heard from this body. So. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, into the mayor, can you talk long-term, Mayor DiNatale, about what is your how do you see long-term sustainability of growth in the police department, so that we're not just looking at a 4 or 5 year period? How do you see this factor into your budgeting long-term?
Mr. Chairman? Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Kuchmarek. I believe that we have made a clear goal of ours is to drive toward economic development. And I think we've done a significant job over the last 10 months with bringing much more interest into the city. And I think with that will help me to provide those kinds of positions. I believe that in 3 or 4 years, the economic development numbers in Fitchburg are going to have changed, and they're going to have improved, which is going to bring in more revenue to the city, which is going to provide me with, hopefully, if I'm still the mayor at that time, more of an opportunity to fund positions like police, fire, and some of our code enforcement people as well, health department, building department, and so on. So, again, I think with that focus that we have on economic development, and I say that whenever I meet with a group, whenever I speak to organizations, that's the goal. That's the number one goal of this administration, is economic development. Because if we can increase that and improve that, it raises everyone's standard. And we help to do that by having a well-staffed police department and taking control of our city, which we have.
Mayor, thank you. It's good to hear that's part of your, long-term plan, and it fits in with your vision. So this isn't just a pendulum swinging, increasing the force size only to decrease. That certainly doesn't help the long-term interest of the city. I mean, as I've mentioned, in my short time on this council, I've heard this body, say time and time again that they're looking for, an increased force and increased spending in that area to provide, our residents with more services and better public safety throughout our city. So, I feel like from my standpoint, this is a no-brainer. Beyond just the budget, the budgetary factors, I mean, you mentioned, I felt like you hit on just about every buzzword today in modern policing, in terms of, non-enforcement and community policing, community engagement unit, and proactive policing. Those are things that we sorely need as not only just as a community but as a Commonwealth. And it's good to hear you talk about kind of being able to sustain and grow upon what you've been able to start with downtown policing, and helping to build a better downtown and more of a community-based feel. you certainly look at what's happening in a national standpoint with, with policing and this divide between the community and the police department. And it's good to hear you talk about how can we help build better bridges with our community? How can our officers and our community better understand each other? That doesn't happen until officers are in the street and doing things like proactive. So it's not the only time they see, officers on the road is when something bad has happened. It's when they're in the community, they're embedded there, and they know who our residents are. So I think that's exciting to think about, that we're taking the right moves at the right time. So Chief, I'm not surprised to hear that we ranked first in the state. I think everything you've done over these past couple of years has put us, has well positioned us to move forward and secure funding not only from the federal government but from other granting authorities in the future. So I appreciate all of your efforts in securing this, and certainly you'll have my support.
May I make one comment? The mayor made a great point about economic development and where the city's going. I've made it a point in the last 2 years as chief of police, economic development and the Fitchburg Police Department have to be hand in hand in collaboration. As we lure new businesses into the city, the first question is public safety and perception of safety and security within our city. And I make it a point to be at every type of economic meeting there is in the city to assure local businesses are coming this way. And as the mayor said, the city is moving in the right direction. And I look forward to what the future is going to bring to the city. And we look forward at the police department working hand in hand to increase that economic development opportunities within the city.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilors, as the chief mentioned, the focus of these officers also is going to be Main Street. You know that we're focusing like a laser, as they say, on Main Street, on growing Main Street. You saw evidence of that with the Fitchburg State University plans for the theater block area. That's just one example. There's also going to be an explosion of development, hopefully, we're looking at down in the Moran Square area. That one building is going to be coming down very shortly in the next couple of weeks. That linkage between housing and transportation is critical, and we're going to achieve that with market rate housing that's tied into the commuter rail. Huge. It's a great asset. This is what we're going to exploit. I need his offices downtown to make sure people feel safe. And that's what our goal is. And if we can just get one anchor business, and we're going to be getting it, in the middle of Main Street, I think you'll see it radiate out from there. And that's where the economic development on that scale happens. And then there are other issues that we're looking at for industrial development and commercial development as well. So I'm hoping in 2 or 3 years, we're going to be in very good shape to add an additional 2 police officers to the police department and get to 80. Thank you.
I have Councilor Beazle and the Councilor Joseph, but I just wanted to add one more thing. I hear the comments made about focusing on economic development as a linkage to funding these positions. I really hope the city does not use subjective growth that we don't know what it's going to be in 4 or 5 years on these hires. That's why I asked the question. My support of this grant or non-support of this grant is tied to what you said earlier about, again, we have a baseline budget right now. This is what we can afford. With the grant, we have to add X amount out of our budget this year that we can absorb within the existing budget. Fine. Then when the grant's over, you mentioned it earlier, and that's where I was going with this. That should be the reason why we add people, is if the bottom line doesn't change. If we're going to lose potentially 11 people at a very high grade and replace them with 11 guys at the very bottom of the ladder from a pay grade scale, that's a savings. That indicates long-term sustainability of a bolstered police force. We didn't do that 20 years ago. We didn't plan it all 20 years ago. So that was my focus for the question that you've adequately answered, at least in my part. 2 points, that we're having matching funds over 3 years, which lessens the blow. But more importantly, we're going to be able to sustain these people through retirements like we did in the fire department a few years ago. That's the appropriate way to go about this, not basing it on additional revenue on projects that may or may not happen beyond what we already know, because there's other expenses in the city's budget that we have no control over, like pension and health care. Those two line items go up by $1 million a year. We raise $1.3 million a year in property taxation above what we did the previous year. 75% of that's already spoken for. So when residents ask me why they don't get extra services, it's because they're subsidizing 80% of their tax increase for existing unfunded liabilities. So I am never going to be supportive of basing new hires on added economic development until it's actually realized. Because we have other expenses out of $112 million that will surely eat up that added revenue before we start hiring people. Councilor Bezal.
Thank you. First of all, Chief, congratulations.
Thank you.
Certainly, I mean, you know, getting this much, it just shows the confidence that they have in our city. One of the questions I had was, so this program is it a federal program, and are officers going to need training in this, or how exactly is it going to work? I know you said that you're going to hire 2 officers, but I'm taking it that you're probably going to look within the force to promote 2 officers to this position and then hire to backfill.
That's exactly what we're doing. This program is put on by the U.S. Department of Justice, the Office of Community-Oriented Policing through DOJ. What we're hoping, what our plans are, and you may see it in the next city council meeting. We have tentatively reserved 3 spots for 3 new police officers in the police academy in January. And you're probably saying 3, where's the 3rd one coming from? I have an anticipated retirement with Deputy Chief Bozikas leaving in January of this year. So we have slotted tentatively those 3 spots for 3 new police officers, 2 of which are being paid from this grant. So those 2 new police officers, the youngest ones, are going to enter the police academy and go get their formalized training at the police academy. We're in the process right now, going through our 2017 yearly bids at the police department. I've created, as I said, a brand-new unit within the police department called the Community Engagement Unit. There'd be 2 positions assigned to the Community Engagement Unit. One position is going to be working 8 to 4, and the other position is going to be working from noon to 8 at night. We have split up the 2 community engagement officers to get the best bang for our buck in the downtown area, so they're not together. Those 2 officers assigned to the community engagement unit will be doing a multitude of tasks. They will be reporting directly to a police sergeant that I am assigning to this unit. Not only the 2 new officers directly in this unit, but in this unit I have enveloped our traffic officers and our school resource officers. These are all duties that are ancillary duties outside of the 911 calls. And to give that a little bit more accountability, I have placed now a sergeant in that unit to oversee all those officers. So what's going to happen here, we enter our bid cycle and we bid primarily by seniority based on collective bargaining agreements. There's a good chance that a senior officer may take this community engagement spot, which would be beneficial because you get a seasoned police officer that knows how to deal with people in a positive light, not a rookie police officer that has to learn the job of policing. So for the most part, you're going to see probably a police officer with 10 or 12 years experience taking over as a community engagement officer.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Joseph.
So the $83,000, which is the city and the federal per officer per year, that covers, is that more than enough to cover, or is that exactly what covers 2 officers for a year?
2 officers for a year. I can give you some really quick breakdowns. Base salary for one sworn officer, entry level, is $47,502. In addition, we take into account fringe benefits. We look at Medicare expenses, roughly $688. Health insurance for family coverage, roughly $15,000. Life insurance, retirement at $46,331. So we've added those numbers together, and we've come up with our total contributions. Total salary and benefits for 1 year, in year 1, is $72,772. So when you do the match with the grant, that's how we've come up with The federal share, first year is $94,000, the local share is $51,000, and that's for 2 police officers.
Okay, because I was just taking the 500,000 and dividing it by 2 and 3 years and got 85.
The
so-
total, and I'm working off our actual grant application, the total federal share amount was $250,000. The total local share amount was $204,444.
Okay.
Basically a 55-45 split with the federal government. And like I said, that not only takes into account their salary, but we're able to take advantage of paying for life insurance, retirement, Medicare, health insurance, and those other post benefits.
So when did you apply for the grant?
This year,
The-
I believe it was around April that we had to start getting our grant application together. We put together the formal grant. First, I had to make sure that there was interest from the mayor's office. I gave a presentation to the mayor, and he supported our adventure in this. So we started sometime in April, and we were notified the grant award sometime in September-ish.
Okay. So back in April, you basically had a show of support from the mayor's office for this grant for 3 years, that he in his 2 years or whatever plus, he will maintain the 78 officers and for that time period, so that you will not have to renege on this and
Yeah,
everything.
we had considerable discussion. Mr. Saracen was in on every meeting as we were talking the finances and the sustainability of this, and at that point, I had support from the mayor's office, and we moved forward with the grant application. Keep in mind, we've applied for this grant for the last 7 years. We haven't been awarded this for 7 years, so for 7 years in a row, we've been trying to get to this grant, so.
Yeah, my point is, you didn't do this in a vacuum. It was done with some forethought from the mayor and support from the mayor's office. So if that's what the direction that he wants to go, which is a direction that I support, obviously, then good luck to you and thank you for bringing in that grant.
Okay. Thank you, Council.
Council Donnelly. Thank you. When we're discussing police and the future, I think that we have to look at perception of the city, not from us, but from people that are in the city and from outside. If you're looking at the perception of any city or any community, you're looking at safety. That's the number one thing people are looking for, is safety. If you have a safe city, it also becomes a desirable city. As we're talking about economic development in the future, we're looking for a place that has safety and is desirable for people, for students, for everybody. When it's desirable, it becomes more valuable. And you look at real estate prices, as it stands right now, Fitchburg has the lowest real estate prices. It's the best buy in the area. You get wonderful homes, wonderful neighborhoods, but people don't see that. Everyone doesn't see that. We still have a perception that we're not as desirable as some communities. And I think that with focus on police in particular, that this is what we have to do to create some of these things. And by creating our value, it's the biggest investment that most people make. So I think step by step, if you want to focus on a department that creates the greatest bang for the buck in safety, desirability, and value, I think this is the department to focus on, and I think it's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Motion to approve 27116.
Second. Motion made and seconded to approve 27116. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you, councils. Mr. Mayor.
Lastly, 27216, the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection for the Sustainable Materials Recovery Recycling Dividends Grant in the approximate amount of $26,500 for the purposes of said grant. Mr. Curry.
Good evening, councilors. Councilors, this is a year 3 grant. We are now looking at over $50,000 total for the last 3 years. Just to very briefly, this grant is based on points through our municipal trash program, trash and recycling. We receive funds based on those points annually. The intention of the grant funds are, one, to apply and sustain a waste app for residents to, it'll be an intuitive application online for residents to utilize. It has many options. It's about $7,000 or $8,000 a year. We will take a look at that for a couple of years. But ultimately, we'd like to combine this with another grant that is ongoing. That grant is incentivizing school recycling in the classrooms. We'd like to take a look at recycling in the cafeteria and reducing waste. With this type of funds, we won't be able to tackle district-wide, all 8 schools, but we certainly would like to look at tackling 1 or 2 schools at a time. And basically, I'm referring to the cafeteria foam tray excessive waste problem. That problem not only creates a lot of waste, it also creates health issues. So tackling 1 or 2 at a time kills 2 birds with 1 stone in my eyes.
President Kuchmarek.
Mr. Curry, I remember, last year you came before us with this grant and talked about the app and its merits. I'm just curious if I could get an update on where things stand in terms of the development.
Sure, we have purchased Recollect. We are reviewing it. They are in the process of installing it. It should be active, hopefully before the end of this year. And it is a waste app that basically helps residents and educates them. They can enter items on how to dispose of items, difficult to dispose of items, as well as it can send reminders of when your trash day is. It can also assist with those issues that barrels are left out 24/7 for those folks that do sign up for the app. You do have to sign up for the app to receive the notifications. But I think it would be helpful, on the notification side of it, it would be helpful during the holidays, such as this week and around the holidays of Christmas, when there are delays and the collection is in the middle of the week and people are all confused when their trash day is and there's barrels all over the place. And so I'm going to give it a try for a year or two in lieu of the calendars that go out. It doesn't seem to me that for the price of $12,000 to $13,000 it's costing the city to send out those recycling trash calendars that anybody's really looking at it. So maybe we'll try an online app and see, and it's actually half the price, and see if that helps educate.
Mr. Curry, I imagine there's other municipalities who are already using this app, and any idea of how effective it's been? And
Lowell does use it. They like it. They have several thousand. I think it's last time I talked to their program, they have 4,000 to 5,000 people. Boston uses it. I'm not sure of their numbers, but if I can reach 3,000 to 4,000 people, I think that's a whole lot more than I'm reaching with our recycling calendars annually.
And in terms of this amount looks fairly similar to that of last year's. Is it slightly higher than last year's, or so how does this allotment compare to past years? And then you said it's based on points. How sustainable is this funding source over the next few years?
I think that it's actually the FY15 was $6,600, FY16 with 19, and now we're at 26. I think it's anything can happen with a new administration, obviously, but it's DEP's way of getting those funds out to communities to incentivize what their goals are. They have a goal to reduce their master plan by 2020 to reduce trash to a certain number. So I think,
So this is a barometer for the progress that we've made over the past 3 years? Is that
I would not commit to anything that is would not be sustainable, obviously.
Sure. Is this a barometer on how we've performed over the past few years and that our funding has gone up that much?
It is. We have scored new points, and if the school's issues don't work out, which I hope they do, and we can't agree on a plan to reduce trash there, obviously we can look at our municipal system and improve it there.
Well, I know there's certainly, plenty of room for growth in education when it comes to...
Education is tough. Reaching out is tough, and
I
Like to
have a brother
experiment.
who lives in Germany, and there's four bins that have to go out every week, and I always think now four seems a little bit excessive, but I always think, you know, it must have taken years of education of informing people how it's done. So any tools that we can give to our residents to help better educate them and help them better inform how to properly dispose of material, I think is great. And hearing that you're looking to combine it with another funding source to tackle two issues at once, I'm pleased to hear you talk about that, because, you know, talking about an app seems so abstract, but when you're able to combine it with a glaring problem, which is, you know, styrofoam trays in every school, it's also taking on something very tangible. So I appreciate your efforts, and congratulations on this grant and the increased funding.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Curry, how much money have we received for this whole thing from the state?
From this particular grant, Sustainable Recovery, this grant actually included the purchase of recycling barrels back in 2012. So combined with that,
Like,
we're
how much
up
money
on-
have we gotten from the state for education?
Well, there's many aspects of this grant. Funds can be spent on about 12 different things.
Okay.
But I think through this grant, we've actually received upwards of $200,000.
I sigh because how often does your office send out paraphernalia on what to do? Every year, right?
Once a year, yeah.
Everyone gets it.
Everyone gets it, yes.
Yet people still don't do what they're supposed to do.
Correct.
Does everybody see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
I mean, I love grants because I'm always told they're free money. They're not free money. They're just from a different source of taxpayer money. You know, so
To comment on that, those funds used to actually come out of city funds, so.
well, shouldn't come out of city. My point is I feel like
And-
you've done more than you can to educate, and yet we're still throwing tens of thousands of dollars to try to educate. Not a criticism of you. I know what you're trying to do, but it's just with everything else we need, this is what we're spending our money on, and your office can use more enforcement people. And instead, we're getting 30 grand from the state, 25 grand from the state to tell people what they already know or should know, and they just don't do it. I mean, Counselor Joseph.
Is the school system required to separate compost, like a restaurant would be? Do they have to have a separate compost or garbage?
Food waste? At present, no. No. That regulation only applies actually to folks that produce a ton of food waste per week. The way the regulation's written, our schools aren't combined, they are singular.
Okay.
So I believe only the college, Fitchburg State University, falls under that regulation at present. But I foresee that regulation becoming more strict and that ban coming down in future years, yes.
Okay, so that's my next question. Is that going to be a residential issue?
I see it being
Or a
the
benefit?
large users first. I think those that produce the tonnage will be, but you will see, it probably will be in my lifetime that you will see. I don't know if you recall back in the 20 or 30 years ago, folks had the garbage can in the back, and there was a waste hall that you will see that program. It won't be in that. It'll be at curbside, but you will see an organics program being enforced by the state probably in the next 15 to 20 years, if not sooner.
Like Mike said, I mean, you see it all throughout Europe, so obviously people are further advanced than we are with.
Right. In fact, some of the funds of this grant are eligible to purchase curbside food waste, but
Not yet.
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Beazle.
Thank you. Mr. Curry, so just to follow up on Counselor Joseph. So the schools, I know that they don't have to compost, maybe by state law, but isn't it something I think that, you know, we're talking about education. If we started early with the children in the schools about recycling, as they get older, they're gonna recycle at their own
We hope they bring it home.
homes, right? And there's a program out there, I know because we used to do it, I think it's called Bricks for Kids, where at work, we used to send our compost, all of our compost they used to compost it, put it in bags, send it back to us, and we would sell the compost, and a certain amount of it actually went to school systems. So it was one of those things where you could actually teach children about compost and about doing the right thing. And, when through education, now they see it in school, they're gonna go home, and they're more apt to recycle once they get home, knowing that this is what this can be used for. I think when we're talking about, and I feel Councilor Di Natale's pain when he says, we just keep spending more and more money, and, the whole thing was, when they talked about putting the bottle bill in, and that was all that, some of that money was supposed to go for education. At some point, it's got to start with the kids, because if you can get the school children to do this and they understand it, then it becomes easier for you, because eventually they're going to pass that on to their children, and it's going to be a generational thing. So, hopefully the schools, instead of, saying, well, we don't have to do it, doing the right thing is a great thing to teach the kids and school systems to do the right thing now. So I don't know if that's something that you could possibly look into, but.
As part of another grant, Counselor, we received last year, somewhere around $50,000. It does include the purchase of recycling equipment. I'm not sure I see any around here now, but it does include, and this year, we have implemented that program, and each school has a champion, and all 8 schools, and they also are required to sign up for the green team through Mass DEP.
Okay.
And so that's the idea of that grant, is to do exactly what you just said.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Motion to approve 27216.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve 27216. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.